mindful of truth ever exceeding our knowledge, love greater than we know, and solidarity ever exceeding our practice. Reverently, we gather for worship, beginning with ourselves as we are, to share the strengths of integrity and the heritage of the Spirit, that we may know more truth, love more freely and fully, and live in the solidarity that strengthens each of us, and through which we transform the world. I am the Reverend Dr. Anthony Johnson, and I welcome you to this virtual worship service of the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg. Because of the continuing danger of the coronavirus, the building remains closed. But the church is open, with a full schedule of programs and activities. Today and every Sunday, there is a live virtual coffee hour beginning at 11:30 a.m. Please read the news you can use and other emails you receive from the church, and please check the website regularly for updates. Please send your joy or sorrow via the link in the email you received and indicate whether you give permission for it to be read in the following Sunday service. If you are a visitor or newcomer, I invite you to explore the website uchbg.org to learn about the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg and its many activities. Whoever you are, wherever you live, whomever you love, whatever you do for a living, you are welcome at the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg.
I invite those of you at home to light a chalice, a candle, or whatever you choose to serve as your chalice at home. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
Please join with us in reading our unison words of affirmation. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is our gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak our truths in love, and to help one another.
Rejoice and come in. Enter, rejoice and come in. Enter, rejoice and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice and come in.
Hello, my name is Corey, and I serve as your Director of Religious Exploration. Today's story is an Indian story titled Strength in Unity. Let's begin. A dark cloud of worry spread through the forest. No longer were the hunters satisfied with capturing birds in their snares one at a time. They had developed new technology. They were taking long strands of fiber, crisscrossing them one strand over another, and tying the strands fast at those intersections. Do you know what they were making? Yes, they were making nets. Now, instead of capturing a single bird, they could capture a handful, a dozen, or hundreds of them all at once. The birds that escaped this new invention were frightened. What could they do? Some birds lost all hope. It's pointless, they peeped with feeble voices. There's no way that we can escape this horror. We might as well give up right now. Others got busy building up their muscle strength and sharpening their bills. If I get caught, boasted those birds, I'll be able to cut my way free. I'll be strong enough to fly away. It was so encouraging to hear hope, but not all the birds liked the brazen approach of the strong birds. Some of the birds said, "If I escape while others die, my life will be filled with unhappiness." A meeting was called. The birds talked back and forth. Caw-caw, caw, tee-wit, tee-woo, chickadee, chickadee, cuckoo, cuckoo. At last, the birds had a plan, and sure enough, it wasn't long before they had a chance to test it. Peep, peep, many birds heard the call. A call of distress? Who was it? Birds of all shape and size flew toward the sound. They landed on the branches of a big tree. But where was the injured bird? They couldn't see it. Suddenly, they were trapped beneath a net. It was a trick, and now they could barely move. Some of the birds panicked and cried out, but others remained calm. Soon a whisper ran through the flock of birds that had been caught. Take a deep breath. Remember our plan. When the king of birds sing, let us flap our wings. The whisper was repeated, and soon it resounded from one end of the net to the other. Take a deep breath. Remember our plan. When the king of birds sing, let us flap our wings. The birds breathed in. The king whistled a plaintive note. The birds began to flap their wings. It was hard work. When it began to feel impossible for some of the birds, they looked over at their neighbors, who were also hard at work and felt encouraged. They continued to flap their wings. Suddenly, they lifted right out of that tree. They rose higher and higher into the sky, carrying the net with them. The king whistled a plaintive note once more. The birds tilted their bodies to the side in unison, as though they were one. The net slid off their backs and dropped to the ground. After that, a new melody could be heard from the forest. There's strength in unity. There's strength in unity. This is the story of how the birds met their fears. This is the story of how we can meet ours. And before we go, I have some questions for you to reflect upon. What are some of the benefits of working together? What makes cooperation and collaboration difficult at times? What would be different if the birds did not have a strong leader? And how might they have succeeded without one? And what do you think are some of the most important qualities of a true leader?
Hope in the
equipping and empowering. Two powerful words. For a church to be able to step boldly into its future, our members need to be equipped with the right tools and information, and empowered to make choices that work for the individual, but also for the greater good of the organization. In this case, our church. My name is Laura Ettinger, and I am a member of your current ministerial search committee. I became a member of UCH, happily and gratefully signing the membership book, in June of 2006. These 14 years have been incredible. Joyful, blessed, heartbreaking, beautiful, and so much more. I look forward to the next however many years I get to be a part of this chosen church family. Currently, UCH is in search for our next settled minister. So what does it mean to have a settled minister, and why is that so important? What happens to Reverend Johnson through and after this process is complete? How do we even go about hiring a settled minister? The short answers: having a settled minister equips us and empowers us as a congregation to fully realize our mission, which is, stated in full, the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg is an inclusive, loving community of faith committed to welcoming and nurturing all with dignity and respect. We make a difference by encouraging lifelong spiritual exploration, equipping individuals for service, and empowering them to act for justice in the world. Calling a settled minister in a normal church year is a big deal. It's a big deal this year, too. It's just very different, conducting all business virtually. For the last 7 years, UCH has collaborated in ministerial service with accomplished and capable interim and contract ministers. Thank you, Reverend Johnson. All of these are hired ministers meant to serve a short time while the congregation discerns its next steps forward. UCH has been fortunate in the ministers we've had serving our congregation through 2 prior searches for a settled minister and through some pretty tough financial and spiritual times for our congregation. We also owe a debt of gratitude to those search committees who worked tirelessly to help UCH call a settled minister. We learned so much about ourselves as a congregation that brought us through and to our current search and discernment process. Settled ministry provides the church with longer-term stability and allows us to move from a time of transition to a time of transformation, becoming the church we dream we can be, the church we know we can be. Our interim and contract ministers help us create the vision, and settled ministers help us make it reality. We call a settled minister to move forward with us, providing guidance and leadership, ministering to and with us. The search process is what will equip us. It lays out the path by which we can choose to call our next minister. As with past search committees, your 2021 search committee is working hard to prepare our congregation for its debut once again on the ministerial search stage. So how does this equip members? You already are having plentiful opportunities to interact with the search committee, to have your voice heard, and to share your perspective on ministry. The congregational survey was filled out by nearly half of the whole congregation today, October 18th, and next Sunday, October 25th. You'll have the opportunity to engage more deeply and personally by participating in charrettes. We used to call these cottage meetings, but given that no one is able to really gather in one another's cottages, we picked a definition we felt is more fitting. And a charrette is a collaborative planning process that harnesses the talents and energies of all interested parties to create and support a plan that represents transformative community change. Pretty big deal. The charrettes will officially start at 11:45 a.m., like following probably your viewing of the service. But we encourage everyone to log on as you normally would for coffee hour at 11:30, beverage in choice in hand, of course, and enjoy one another's company for a few informal minutes before we begin the charrette in earnest. Members are empowered in this way to be a part of this important process. We want to hear your thoughts and have the opportunity to discuss what ministry means for you and what kind of ministry you would like to have at UCH. We will also be having a workshop that all members will be encouraged to participate in. It's called Beyond Categorical Thinking and is a critically important part of the process. There's more info on the Church's Search Committee webpage. Members of the congregation are the most important stakeholders in the search process, and the search committee will work to equip and empower you throughout this church year, weird as this year may be. We do this so that we as a collective can step boldly into our future working with new, called, settled leadership, living our mission and vision wholeheartedly together. May it ever be so.
Today, in this congregation, someone is hurting or in sorrow. Today, in this congregation, someone is anxious because of events in the world. Today, in this congregation, someone is lonely. Today, in this congregation, someone is filled with joy and wants to celebrate. For in spite of the fear and sorrow in the world today, there are still moments of joy. I ask you to pause and reflect upon the sorrows or concerns or joys you may be feeling at this time, and those for whom you may be concerned, and hold these thoughts and hold their names in silence for a moment. We extend our love to all of those who are experiencing sorrow or suffering, and to those who are experiencing joy, knowing that whatever their experiences are this day, they can trust in the acceptance of this community. They can trust in the continuity of life. You can trust in the acceptance of this community. You can trust in the continuity of life. For when there is birth, life goes on. When there is death, life goes on. When there is joy, life goes on. When there is sorrow, life goes on. May we always live in trust and in love, that all joy might be shared and that all sorrow might be comforted. Amen. Blessed be. Today I offer you the third and final sermon in the series titled A Church with a Mission. In these sermons, I am exploring the meaning and implications of the mission of the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg, which the members adopted on May 17, 2020. This vote concluded a 2-year process in which the members discerned and redefined the vision for the church and then articulated a mission with which to move forward in making the vision real. Here is the vision the members defined for the church in the year 2029. The Unitarian Church of Harrisburg will support and be relevant to people with diverse identities, ideologies, abilities, and backgrounds. It will be important in the lives of its members as a hub of community engagement, as a place of lifelong spiritual exploration, and as a family of members who care for and are cared for by each other. The church will transform lives within the congregation and among those we serve in the community. We will have built an infrastructure to live these values and to enact our good intentions. The church will provide both virtual and physical spaces to gather and act. These spaces will be a home for the congregation and will be made sacred by the energy that members bring into them. After developing this vision, which was adopted in 2019, the members went on to develop the mission adopted earlier this year. The Unitarian Church of Harrisburg is an inclusive community of faith, committed to welcoming and nurturing all with dignity and respect. We make a difference by encouraging lifelong spiritual exploration, equipping individuals for service, and empowering them to act for justice in the world. The first sermon of the series addressed inclusivity and welcome. This is more than mere politeness or good manners. It is a genuine welcoming into a community of faith. Treating people with dignity and respect means treating them in a manner that affirms their human worth. The second sermon addressed the meaning of lifelong spiritual exploration, beginning by defining the we who make the difference as including all the I's, all the individuals in the church. The mission is collective, even if individuals contributed to its composition. The church is a decent institution because, by the philosopher Avishai Margolitz's definition of decency, it does not humiliate persons. But it does more than not humiliate persons. It makes a positive difference in their lives. Today's sermon addresses equipping individuals for service and empowering them to act for justice in the world. Like the aspects of the mission addressed in the 2 previous sermons, this part of the mission must shape and be made real by the people of the church acting together. The response to evil and suffering is in human hands. It is not explicitly stated anywhere in the mission, but there is an important assumption behind the final 2 clauses in the mission. It is that there exists in the world both evil and injustice, and it is part of the work of the church to address these. It is part of our work as religious beings to serve others who, because of structural evil or personal suffering, experience deprivation and even personal violence in their lives. Service means helping others in the situations in which they live. As in the biblical teaching to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and feed the prisoner. It is also part of our work to change the structures of society so as to lessen and eventually eliminate these evils that affect human persons. So let me clarify the difference between service and action. Service consists of doing for others or giving to others. Service is often meeting a particular need in the here and now. As Marian Wright Edelman, long leader of the Children's Defense Fund, put it, service is the rent we pay for living. Examples of service include donations of food and clothing, or volunteering at Gather the Spirit or in a homeless shelter. Action for justice in the world means changing the social structures that create inequitable situations that then create the needs that are addressed through service. Action means making structural changes in society. For example, changes that lessen poverty, such as protecting the right to a fair wage or intervening in the market to produce affordable housing. Service and action are both important aspects of the practice of our faith, both important aspects of the work of the church and its people. This church's work with Gather the Spirit for Justice is primarily service. However, ensuring that people of low income are well fed and are able to access services that address other needs also constitute acts of distributive justice, of sharing the goods of the society. Now, they may not change the structures of injustice that are part of our world, but to a small extent, they recalibrate the distribution of resources to benefit the low-income residents of Allison Hill and nearby neighborhoods. When we work in coalition with others to strengthen legal protections for workers, for example, or to finance affordable housing is another example, we are acting to address the structures of injustice in this country. So how does the church equip individuals for service and action? I start by saying and naming through ethical teaching and spiritual, that is religious, exploration. Individuals need an ethical framework in order to serve. They need to know how to identify a need that they can address. They need to be able to discern if it is ethically or morally possible to address the need before them. And if so, is the change in the situation ethically responsible and even doable? Does the service actually enhance the humanity of the person? Or does it encourage a dependence on you, the helper? These are not always easy questions to answer. The church needs to equip individuals to make these judgments, to answer these questions. And this can be done through sermons, study groups, discussions in group or with the minister or with someone else knowledgeable and perceptive. Further, ethical teaching and learning enable people to understand the structures of injustice that create poverty and disenfranchise citizens and neighbors. This helps us to know what structures need change and how we might act to change them. The teaching enables church members to understand not only what changes are needed, it also enables them to recognize their ethical obligation to address the structures of injustice and change. Service can contribute to distributive justice by evening out some of the inequities of the way things are distributed in our society, that is, the existing distributive injustice. But service itself does not directly change the structures that create inequality or other injustices. Knowing this truth constitutes a big part of what it means to be equipped for service. Knowing what you can do and what it will achieve, and knowing what more you might do that might achieve more, and knowing what you might not be able to achieve. But if people know these things and have the skills to act and the knowledge to act, if people are equipped and empowered, they can do it, and they can have the confidence that they will be successful in addressing the needs and issues before them. And the church can and must support the confidence of its members, not just in situations where others need service, but also in their own lives. The church itself is a structure not only supporting the spiritual satisfaction of its members, it is a structure whose members make the church itself a force for change in the structures of society that create and enable injustice. Now, the structures, or it might be easier to say organizations, in which people can serve to bring about change include Gather the Spirit for Justice, which provides basic food and social services and medical screenings to low-income people in Allison Hill. They also include another organization that we also include in change in unjust structures is We March, We Act, through which residents of the city of Harrisburg are registered to vote and encouraged to vote. Also, the Unitarian Universalist Pennsylvania Advocacy Legislative Ministry advocates for policy changes at the state level here in Pennsylvania on behalf of the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg and other congregations across the state. And you could name, and I could name, many more such organizations, such structures for justice that can bring about change through our shared action, not all of which are church-related by any means. But these are just three of many organizations that first teach people about injustice and ways that injustice might be addressed, and second, serve to challenge the structures themselves that are unjust. Through the transformation of its members' lives at the personal, individual level and at shared levels, the church equips individuals for action and empowers them to act. Individuals act through their own strengths and knowledge, and some of this strength and knowledge they bring with them when they walk through the door for the first time. However, through lifelong spiritual exploration, they enlarge their strength and broaden and deepen their knowledge. And they are empowered by the moral authority of the church, as expressed in its mission and supported by the purposes and principles of the Unitarian Universalist Association. So to wrap this all up, to tie it together, the mission of the church is to be, first, a community of faith, to welcome and nurture all who would be part of it. In nurturing individuals and in making differences in their lives, the church makes a positive difference in the world. It makes a positive difference in the world, furthermore, through the actions of the people who are part of the church and whose own lives have been enriched by membership. That is, those who have been welcomed and nurtured with dignity and respect. The lifelong spiritual exploration that is part of the mission of the church challenges the people to grow for their own spiritual satisfaction, but also challenges them to act in ways that serve others and challenge the world by dismantling the structures of injustice. To displace and replace structures of injustice, the church provides its own structures for service and for action to create greater justice. It equips its members to build such structures outside of the church. Nurturing and caring for its members and giving them the power to change the world. That is how the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg lives its mission. It is how it makes its vision real. It is how its people live together in faith. Amen. Blessed be.
Even as you are separated and sitting in your own homes today, the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg is nevertheless a freely gathered church of free people. The church is created, sustained, and supported by you, the people of the congregation. The church is open even when the building is closed. Each week, we share the offering with a community organization. During the month of October, the recipient is Gather the Spirit for Justice. Gather the Spirit for Justice is a nonprofit 501c3 organization that brings together Allison Hill residents, area organizations, businesses, and churches to address issues of social justice and economic equity. It was jointly founded by the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg and the Shared Ministry during the time we operated at 1508 Market Street. It now operates out of Christ Lutheran Church, 124 South 13th Street. Gather the Spirit strives to be a place where people can find common ground to meet and discuss the changes that need to be made to make Harrisburg a great place to live for all of its citizens. During the COVID pandemic, Gather the Spirit is not open for community hours, but it is working to make sure its current space is more usable for visitors. It also continues to work in Allison Hill by providing masks and hand washing stations in strategic locations near their Christ Lutheran Church location, and by encouraging voter engagement together with Power to the Hill. Your financial support and commitment matter. Please be generous.
Even in difficult times, the church can be a force for transformation in the lives of its members and for transformation of the wider world. I call you to reflect upon how your faith calls you to service, to recognize what you can do to ease suffering in the world. I call you to reflect upon how your faith empowers you to act. I call upon you, I call upon all of us to be agents of justice in the world. Amen. Blessed be.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. Feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need.
We close with these words from Duke Gray. The blessing of the truth be upon us. The power of love direct us and sustain us. And may the peace of this community preserve our going out and our coming in from this time forth until we meet again. Amen, and blessed be.